But yeah, Grant, thanks for coming in, man. I do appreciate you. Obviously, a very valued partner for our team.
So 2 years we've been working together now, a little bit over, maybe.
Yeah, about that. Yep.
Past the 100 houses, mate. So congratulations.
And it's been great. I will say it's unfortunately in this industry, as most of our listeners will know, I hate this industry. I think it's terrible. You know, some of the operators in here, you know what they're like. It's been very refreshing working with you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Is one thing I can say for sure, man. But I guess for our listeners, you've got a very interesting life story and backstory. I would love to start there because I think from what I know about your history, and I'm sure I'm about to find out a lot more. It's most people nowadays, particularly with the current way that we are sort of living out there, a lot of people dream of being in the position that guys like you and I are in.
Yep.
Anything that we can do to help them get on that track is really what this whole podcast is all about.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So yeah, if you start from the top, man, where did you start your career? How did you start it?
I left school at 15 years of age when I was asked by a teacher when I was walking home from school to suggest it was in the best interests of my classmates if I didn't return.
Right.
So it was, end of year 10, start of year 11 it was actually, and in Wodonga in country Victoria. Dad wouldn't let me leave home. All Dad wanted me to do was go to uni and have all the opportunities that he didn't, because he comes from Tasmania, a family of 7 brothers and a sister, and I just wanted to be like Dad, who was a businessman. You know, I wouldn't let me leave home until I had a job. I remember it was Easter week, and I'd go down to Coles every day. Monday, no good. Tuesday, no good. But it's the busiest day of the year in retail. So Thursday, walk into Coles, and of course they needed a checkout chap. You mean, because back then the terminology was a checkout chick, and couldn't get to away with that these days. And of course, me being a male doing that role, be a checkout chap. They said that thinking I'd say no. So I was straight away, this is fantastic. The old cash registers where you'd have to put in $1.25 and then press if it was grocery or I didn't even know, or it was fruit and veggies. It was funny. And about 4 hours after starting, they'd run out of trolleys. So they said, Mr. Jones, can you go and get some trolleys? So for me, that was a promotion. You're outside, wheeling in the trolleys, smoking a dart, which you could back in those days.
Yeah.
Went home that night to Dad and said, I've got a job and I'm leaving home, because that was Dad's rule. And I'd met 2 of the people that worked in the fruit and veg department, said, you can come live with me. So then Good Friday, I moved out and never went home again. So I did supermarkets for a couple of years, loved it. I remember when all the schoolmates started going off to uni and I realised all I was doing was funding their drinking and dope habits, being from a country town. So I pulled my head in, joined the cadet program, management program with Coles, on track to be a store manager by the time I was 21, which is a pretty big feat back then.
Mm-hmm.
Tireless hours, the 80, 90 hours a week, and not getting paid much for it, but, mainly through nightfall management initially. But in the day management, then they changed the rules at Coles, and we got an all store memo that used to come in an overnight bag. We didn't even have fax machines then, that said any store manager had to be 25. And I'm like, well, hang on, I've been working 90 hours a week for 2 years, spat the dummy, threatened to leave, went and worked for an independent chain down the road, which was really interesting, going from Coles, a conglomerate, Coles Myer as it was then, to a small, where I became a store manager before I was 21, which was a big life achievement, particularly then. But of course, every time you wanted to make a decision, you had to talk to the owner.
Yeah.
So, in those days we used to have the cleaners would come in at 5:45. We'd lock them in the store after we'd closed out at 6, go away for 2 hours and come back and let them out. OH&S reasons, you couldn't do that these days, but that was to stop them stealing or whatever the terminology would be.
Right.
So rather than drive back to Albury in New South Wales, I had a couple of school friends. I'd go down, had a pizza shop, and I'd just sit there and hang out with them. We'd make a few pizzas or do some deliveries, which was a new thing this is 1988, And then as you sit around and talk as friends, so we should open a pizza shop, we should do delivery. So that started the journey of building my own pizza stores with a couple others, and we ended up having, the following 2 years, we suddenly had stores in Albury, Wodonga, Bathurst, Cowra, Young, all through country New South Wales and northern Victoria. Went my own way because we'd started franchising and developed a brand called 1111, but the difficult thing was one got married, one had a girlfriend. I was in Orange and didn't want to leave Orange. Someone was in Bathurst, so I just took my own store, the one store as payment, went my own direction. And there's a group called Eagle Boys. At one stage we had nearly the same numbers. the founder approached me and said, well, why don't you convert your store to Eagle Boys? So I remember going back to see my dad. And at the time, I was also working with Uncle Toby's as a rep, and the money I was making as a rep in the company car, stripping the tyres off and delivering pizzas.
Right. Yeah, fair.
Paid the wages for the manager I had in the store. And
so, sorry, how old were you at this point?
22.
Awesome. Cool.
So up to about 6 stores. But I went back to my one, and Tom Potter, was the founder of Eagle Boys, came and saw me and said, convert your shop. So I went to Dad and said, I need $40,000 to convert to Eagle Boys. And he thought I was mad that I left the supermarkets in the first place for a pizza shop. So can't help, he's not going to give me a loan. He didn't have the money to loan it, but wouldn't guarantee me a loan. He's a former bank manager. And then the founder of Eagle Boys, the only way I went and saw a family friend who was a bank manager, said, if you get the franchisor to give you an unsupported guarantee and their father to give you an unsupported guarantee, I can lend you the $40,000 to convert. They did. My last week is 11/11, as we were called. I think we did $2,500 or $3,000. I remember the week because it was the 18th of August. We converted in 1992, because I got married on the 22nd that weekend. The present from Eagle Boys was to have someone staff my store, and that started the journey. Our first week was about 11,500, which was an amazing turnaround in the same location, same product, same staff, same telephone number. It was just about marketing, and pride. So instead of, you take your shirt off and go out to after dinner for work or a beer, you didn't want anyone to know where you work. Whereas I just walk around anywhere in this bright pink. I was like giving out pizzas as if. Anyway, that business went really well. Travelled to Perth to talk at a franchise expo about my experience and look at because they conversion. All my former partners converted all their stores. I think I was the 11th or 12th store that joined Eagle Boys. That was in their real growth form, and a year later, there was like 35 or 40, and most of them were conversions. Came to Perth to talk to people at a franchise expo, sat on the plane next to the founder, and he showed me a business plan, which is 2 years, 24 stores, you'll be a millionaire. So before I even got to Perth, I'd never been here in my life. I'm ringing my wife, going, one of those big mobile phones that, sure, they probably gave you cancer.
Yeah.
We're moving to Perth, and she's like, what? Anyway, fell in love with Perth. We literally sold the shop, cleared all the debt that I had, which was ridiculous for a pizza shop. We owed about $300,000 or $400,000 because I'd refinanced ovens and cars and half the debt that was left from the company, but I cleared the whole lot right in a year. Moved over, started, and of course, 2 years in, I've got 4 shops, not 24. The business plan's great, but not if you don't write it yourself. Big lesson in that. And of course, out of money. But I was a member of the franchise council in WA and shared an office with, so I had my own office, but we'd get together all us master franchisees, which were like, you're not a franchisor, but you're not a franchisee. The best description then was you were a chickaduck. And one of the other franchisors who grew to be a great friend had a company called Leonard's Poultry. He was the master. Yep. So he said, why have you got an office? Why have you got 4 employees, all this? Pack everything up. Come work out of my office. Just bring your lady to answer the phones, Kath, and start again. And so we did, and that year we managed to sell 8 stores, so we went from 4 to 12. And then in a market like Western Australia, once you get past 10, particularly then, you're a recognised brand. And then we went on over the following, this is 94, 5. The next 5 years, we built the brand to 30 stores. We were the market leader in WA. I think number 2 was Pizza Hut. Domino's were only just starting. Then our first store was actually a Domino's conversion, but very different owners to have it now, who own it now. And I got on my first involvement on a board, on the national board of the Franchise Council, and we eventually reached agreement to sell the group to Pizza Hut. I'd accepted a role as a GM of a New Zealand brand called Fastway Couriers. It was going to Europe. I'd be located in Monaco. I didn't even know where it was, and we didn't have Google then to find out. But I knew there was Formula One there because I was always been a Formula One fan. And so I went over there to have a look.
And when was this? What year?
That was in 1990. That was in 2000.
2000. Cool.
So I relocated in mid-2000, started developing the Fastway model throughout Europe. We'd sold out to Pizza Hut and the whole deal fell apart. Franchisor rings and says, our contract says you've got to come. We're all getting out for millions. That didn't end up being the case. And I got, I think the best word, screwed. And franchisor basically said, well, you have to come back and run the business. And my wife was then the producer of The Current Affair. So she was back when Current Affair was Current Affair, not how to sit on the couch and lose weight, but, Ray Martin and Yarn Event, those sorts of people. She'd given up that job to caretake the handover of the sale of the business. So we were calling it. I'd over there accepted a new role, so I just gave the business away. We basically walked away. We got $500,000 for it, but had to refinance 3 or 4 stores and never saw a cent. I think we ended up realistically for a business doing about 15 million a year turnover, 500 employees, we got 100 grand. But I was out. I'm living in Monaco. I remember I was there for about 6 months, and then Katrina came over, and it's New Year's Eve. We've woken up on this other side of the world. We've gone down to the port. Monaco is a unique place. The Prince has put on a party. He does every New Year's Eve. So he's got Black Eyed Peas playing and free Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Okay, this is cool. And we're just looking at each other. We both broke into tears going, what are we doing here? Everyone talks funny. But we went through that together. We, was involved. Didn't like Fastway for a few reasons, but we had a 3-year contract. We served that contract out, put Fastway into, I think it was 12 countries throughout Europe and North Africa, and also into Canada and markets like that. But it started to have some challenges, which was they didn't adapt their system to suit the local markets. They were adamant we had to do it the way they did it in New Zealand. And we're going up against countries like where DHL came from. And we're trying to say you've got to do a same-day delivery. Anyway, served that out. Monaco's a funny place. I got a little bit sick. My daughter was born there, which, she's now 22, but that changed my life for all the great, my proudest achievement. And then I ended up by getting involved with a oil exploration lease in the Canning Basin in Western Australia,
Right.
with a publicly listed company that we controlled out of Canada with money we raised in the UK. It's a story that I should write a book. And what happened in the whole raising capital, and oil wasn't worth anything. It was worth about $30 a barrel. We literally bought the oil field, flying back to Europe, and our names being yelled out on the sound system at Dubai, and oil had jumped to $50 a barrel, and it went on a journey to 120, 130, and I'd been paid in shares and pennies for the last year and a half and all the work I'd done, and all of a sudden now $400,000 company is worth 10, 15, 20 million. It was an amazing journey. It made me realise that I never want to be involved in the public environment again, because I actually thought I was JR from Dallas. That I was an oil baron when it was actually nothing to do with oil. It was the fact that you may find some was all about speculation.
Yeah.
And I've since learned, like Bitcoin and all these things, that shares are really dependent on someone else being prepared to pay more for it than you did.
Yeah.
And so I like building things. And then we had a ball. We eventually ran out of money in Monaco. It's an expensive place. When the GFC hit, and woke up one day and it's like, I've gone for a bike ride down to Italy with a few of my cycling mates, get home and I'm pressing refresh on the computer, and your share values dropped by about 90%. And everything I had was in shares.
Right.
It's like, it's okay. It's not a loss if you don't realise it.
Yeah.
They never came back. So that was 2008. We hung around for another couple of years until the pot was wiped completely dry. And my last night in Monaco, it's 2:00 in the morning. I've gone and finished. I was a drinker then. My bottle of vodka at the local Sass down on the beach. Michael Jordan was there. I remember I had to buy a cigar. Had to text my wife and go, can you get your father to put some money in the account? I've just bought a cigar for Michael Jordan and myself and my best mate, which is an amazing story in itself, because he's the GOAT to me.
Well, he's the GOAT of all sport, really.
Walk at home in tears thinking my time here is done. I'd met some incredible athletes and people over the journey. 2 days later, I was on the couch at my parents' in-laws' place in Orange in New South Wales. And Monday night at 5, I started at Coles packing shelves. And I remember one of the guys there, because Orange is a country town that has a university for dentists, 2 guys, Pascal and anyway, and we're having a tea break about 10 o'clock at night. They say, what did you get up to on the weekend? And I said, I was the new guy. I said, I've got a story you won't believe. Funny, 3 months later, I opened a pizza shop 4 doors down the road from my original one that was still open as Eagle Boys. They came and joined me. Then they're both very successful dentists with practices, one in Byron Bay, and I think the other one's got a few in Sydney, and started the whole journey again. I went back to packing shelves. From there, I went back to fast food. The industry hadn't really changed. I mean, it's QSC and V. I think I learned that from Ray Kroc at McDonald's: quality, service, cleanliness, and value, and just be good, be better.
Yeah.
Just aim to be. Don't be the best, just be better. And that was great, but I didn't like Orange in New South Wales. I wanted to get out of there. I made my way back to WA, got involved in a wellness group, trusted the wrong people, sadly. But it got me out of Orange. My wife and daughter came over and joined me after 3 years here. 2019, I'm driving around an Uber, lost, pretty bad place. We call it mental health or whatever tag you want to put on it, but not good. And I was I was driving one day, picked up someone that worked at BGC, and he noticed I was wearing an unusual watch, the watch I've got on today, not an expensive watch, but just unusual. And you had to know about that. And he goes, what's an Uber driver doing wearing that, if that's what I think it is?
What sort of watch is it?
It's a Monaco Tag Heuer. And when I moved to Monaco, it was for sale. And I'm a wanker. I moved into Monaco. I'm going to watch. It's called Monaco. I didn't know it had a plastic face. I thought it had a glass face, but it was a test run that Tag did. So it's actually a very valuable watch now.
Right.
But it was more from the relaunch. And so that led me into the conversation of, I used to be in Monaco, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, what the hell are you doing driving Uber? You should come work with us. And he introduced me to the sales manager at then Commodore Homes. Went and had an interview. This is in November 2019. January, I think it was the 15th, I started. I still drove Uber for the first 2 or 3 months. And by May, I was their number one rep. Well, there's 250 reps at BGC, but within Commodore, I was one of the top reps. And for me, it wasn't about nothing. I was working for $700 a week, 50 hours a week driving Uber. And I went to a business where they were paying you $7,000 to sell a house. I'm like, this is incredible. I think I sold 2 in my first week. And I didn't know anything about the industry, and I still don't. Everyone jokes at work that I don't know what a Hip and Valley is. I think it sounds like a good name for a nightclub. But I've got people at work that do know. It's more about the ability to build trust with people, and that's what I found with. And I don't like the tag of being a salesperson. I think you don't actually sell homes. If you're good at what you do, you actually get people to buy them. If the opportunity is right and the opportunity fits, you shouldn't have to sell it. And it's building that empathy with the client. So I obviously love Levita. So this was BGC originally. And then, of course, COVID hits. And at first, we're all about to jump off a cliff. What the hell are we doing? We're not allowed to go to displays. But I've always worked for myself. I can always see ahead. So I was ringing up people that I've been speaking to in Kalgoorlie and going, well, why don't we can get you to sign it by DocuSign? So I'm still putting in deals. I'm going to work and trying to get something done by DocuSign. And in COVID, the management are trying to get me to get a client to go to a lawyer and get them to sign an agreement that they're acknowledging that they're buying this electronically, even though there's signature forms within. And they didn't even know that the other half of BGC already, I think it was Terrace Homes, already had a DocuSign account. So typical big group, left hand not talking to the right. So we were through that period. I knew that the market was changing rapidly because you could see the rental numbers dropping every week.
Yeah.
And you could I wouldn't call myself a futurist, but I've always been able to be a big daydreamer and imagining the future. I could just see things changing. And I built a relationship with DHA then, their Defence Housing Australia. They needed 50 homes. I rang a good personal friend of mine from the Monaco days, Aussie, but we'd tried to do something together with Domino's Pizza Group. He was the CEO over there, but unfortunately I lived in France but didn't speak French, so it never came together. But we'd always kept in contact, similar ethics and values. And I said, there's an opportunity to build 50 homes. He's a high net wealth individual. He says, well, let's pull it together. Let me look at the numbers. 1 page of grant, not 10 pages, which I'm a bit guilty of. He says, let's do it. But unfortunately, with Defence Housing Australia, every time you went back and you'd identified a block, it'd take them 6 or 7 weeks. Oh, yeah, they'd eventually say, okay, that's all right. Prices were going up every week. House prices were going up, land prices. So Andrew just said, well, why don't we just do a dozen homes, Jonesy? Let's not go overboard. So we did. And I found some land down in Lakelands, $93,000 lots that everyone at work, when I walked in, I took 9 of them, laughed at me. So what are you going to do with that shit? And then I bought a few in. Renee looked after me out in Brabham and a couple in Medora Bay with Sadley Group. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting for contracts. Sat down with the general manager. It was Christmas 2021, I think it was. Absolutely no way are we going to give you any increases. Not going to happen. Okay, promise. No, come back after Christmas. Where is the contracts? We bought the land and settled. So my business partner's going, Jonesy. And then they tell me, we're just sorting out the increases. And I was like, well, hang on. Because we had, he was the one with the money, not me. He's the one with the signature. I didn't have anything. I was still making my way back, But, and remember a year earlier I was driving Uber and Dad was paying my rent and the daughter's school fees. So I had to then go back to Andrew and my business partner and go, listen, these guys are going to give us an increase, but someone pulled me aside at BGC and said, don't build here, Jones. They can't even add up what they've sold. They're never going to build them. Yeah. So I had to go, you've trusted me we've settled on this land. What do we do? And I said, I just don't think we should build here. I said, if we hang on to the land for a year, it's moving pretty aggressively. We're probably going to pick up 25, 30% on it. And happy days, make $1 million on, $2.5, $3 million. All good. He goes, why don't you talk to other builders? But I didn't know anyone. It's a very incestuous industry.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that this person used to work there and this one there and this one. So, but someone gave me the number for Mark Tomassi from Levita Homes. I remember ringing Mark and going, Grant, Levita, from BGC, I've settled on the land, I've got finance in place. And I remember he called me back, he goes, but you work for a builder. Well, anyway, Mark's adore him, just says, we'll sit down and have a coffee. Went, met him, had a coffee. He goes, if this is all true and you don't mess with all the terminology, if you don't fuck me around and the finance comes through, I'll build them in 8 months. I remember ringing Andrew back. He goes, well, what do you think? I said, well, I actually really like him. Well, my first question, I was going, I think the deal is good. Their houses are going to be more expensive. No, what do you think of Mark? I said, well, it's the first person I've met when I look him in the eye and actually believe everything he says. Levita's doing like 7 homes a month there. It was really in its infancy. And he said, okay, do it. So I went back to Mark, get the contracts ready. He got them ready in a week. And then the journey was off. And once we'd signed all the contracts, he rings and said, let's have another coffee. Went, sat down, had a coffee. And he goes, you got a business partner on the other side of the world who I hadn't seen for 12 years. You put together a whole deal as the trusted partner, and he was funding it all and all the synergies with the build, and you work for the building and you fucked the whole thing up. Then you turn around and go back and present a new builder. It's $50,000 more homes, so it's $750,000 more because it's 15 blocks. And he still wants to go ahead and back you, and he says, you obviously know how to build a relationship with people. And Mark had a very clear focus with Levita. He says, we're a retail business, but here's what's going to happen in the industry over the next 5 years. And he could nearly get a calendar out, and everything he said would happen would. The investment market's going to go nuts. They're then going to shut them out of town and run them away. Then they'll start coming back, which is where we are now. He says, I'm remaining focused on this side of the business. Do you want to help start a wholesale division? I was like, I don't want to be a rep anymore. I was thinking about going to Europe and getting a job back in food. And he goes, well, why not? And I said, well, I don't like the fact that, because I've always worked for myself, you put a deal in and then 6, 7 or 12 months later, they come back and go, you can now get paid. But you don't know what happens, the machinations behind the scenes. I want to be involved. He said, well, we can help with that. And then I said, why is it that it takes 3 months to get a contract when it's a copy and paste? Why don't we just bring a variation through that has working drawings? We just start with the sketch. He goes, that's a good idea. I reckon we could do that. And investors, I said, if they're an investor, why don't we make them pay 6.5%? Why are they allowed to buy a house if they haven't got 6.5%? They're not investors. He goes, good idea. Anything else? I said, we might make some stuff up on the journey. He goes, all right. Well, we're done? All right, done. Agreed. Joined. Very complimentary. About 3 months later, I was asked to join the board, and I've been on the board since, so being that involved in the business. So when I understood, I still don't know what Hidden Valley is, I do, but the reality is I started to learn about behind the scenes, and the more confidence you have, the more empathy you have when you're talking to people. So where did I find clients? LinkedIn. You go to LinkedIn, you'd see someone over east, you go, hi, my name's Grant. Who are you building with? I'm building with Levita myself. This is my experience. We're 4 months in. We're at lockup. Blah. And I guess I'm 57 now, but I was 54 when I first joined Levita. You're older, so you can get someone to answer a call a bit sooner. The fact that you're doing something, but not coming from a position of trying to show off, but from a position of empathy. And then we're away, and 10 a month, then 15, then 20, and as it's built up, and met people like yourself who also had to trust us. And initially it was all, we're going to build a house in 10 months or 8 months. We're not going to give you an increase, but no one could believe us. And of course, when we started delivering, now reputationally, the whole market, well, I think it'd be a bit arrogant to say everyone followed us, but same day contracts and all that sort of stuff, which is a given now, wasn't even thought of back then. So that's been great. I'd always walked into Levita WA midstream, so it was a retail business, and we brought in invest. So I always the guy that brought in all this work. We're only supposed to be a small builder, but it was always a part of Mark's vision. And then we were looking at expanding to Queensland, and my business partner stepped in and said, why don't you come and have a look at Adelaide? Because he's an Adelaidean. And the indicators in that town were very much like what Perth was going through. It was Queensland's already firing, and it's like 2 weeks of Olympics in 2032 doesn't mean you should be paying $800,000 for a house in Logan. So we went and had a look at South Australia. The indicators all look right, and so off we went. Now we're 25 to 27, 20 to 25 home a month builder there now, It wasn't easy, We built it on the back of invest and it brought retail in as opposed to retail and bringing in invest because that gave you speed. And very proud of the team there. We've got about 23 in the office there in South Australia. We've just purchased our own office over there. And we've been thinking about Melbourne. We've taken the foot off the gas on that a little bit now, but we're very happy with the market here. We've got a great business in Perth, a great team. We're different. Definitely disruptor is our model. We don't do display homes. So, I believe we do because we've got at the moment, I think 443 as of this week, houses under construction in Perth. Which one do you want to look at?
Yeah.
Not a house that's been made. The industry's built on deceit.
Yes.
It's like, here's a house you can have for $350,000, but it's actually $1 million home.
Yeah.
Or here's a realestate.com.au ad that has that lovely asterisk and the word from. So the old bait and hook, they tell you it's $320,000. By the time you got a roof on it and a door in your garage, you're at $400,000. So I think being just honest is something that's worked really, really well for us. And that's what I found myself as you develop relationships with people. If you're just honest, it works. We've never taken longer than a year to build a house. We've never given an increase on a house in construction. Now, they're two key fundamentals, particularly then I'm talking invest, retail we have. But they're important for an investor because a house is a liability until it's got a tenant.
Yep.
That's when it truly turns into an asset. So therefore, the quicker you can build, but also I remember when BGC started going back to clients who you'd built relationships with, and we didn't have to do it. They'd ringing them up explaining why they had to get a $40,000 increase. And then it would be a negotiating process and they'd come out paying 10 or 12, 13. When you're building an investment home, you've gone and leveraged the equity you've got in your home, or you've borrowed, or however you've pulled the money together. You've made a commitment to yourself, your family at this. And then if a builder's coming back going, oh, we missed the fact that there's clay here, and then now footings, we now got to charge an extra 20. Where's it come from? You just go out for the money. Oh, you're an investor, you can find the money. That surety, I think, is really important. And we work with partners like Motivate. It's people that we know that can rely on us,
mm-hmm.
and we need to be able to rely on them. So, it's a clever model. We still are fundamentally a retail business at heart, and always will be. But the investment market has been something that's really driven WA at the moment. And I guess as we get the chance to talk a little bit about the market, it peeled off a little bit because the land agents made it very unwelcome for investors. And I get really frustrated with that because I don't believe there's any such thing as a home build. You can't build a home. We build houses. The people who move into it make it a home. I bought my first home, as in personal home, last year. I've always rented where I wanted to live and bought where others wanted to live. And I'm still a little uncomfortable with that permanence of owning your own place. I can't just pick up and take a job in Europe tomorrow, which Mark probably likes.
Yeah.
But the reality is that takes some getting used to. But I think it's the people that live in a house that turn it into a home.
Definitely.
And you can actually, I remember Mark saying to me once, you can get rid of a bad tenant, you can't get rid of a bad owner.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear so many stories of the bloke down the street that's ringing council and, throwing your bin back outside. But, I don't think anyone can. There's a lot of people that you see spruiking now that my clients might have done XXX over the last 3 years. If anyone says that they knew that was going to happen, I believe they're full of shit.
Right.
I mean, it's about timing, and fortunately, we build our homes. We build-to-rent.org's that was my business. The plan was to build them to rent them, but I sold them. And I've now got build to sell them, build to live. But the reason why I did that is the market changed. We sold them and used that funding to buy some land, which is a farm down south, and now that's turning into a landhold and an estate in itself. But the reality is, I'm so lucky to have got a second chance after having, I was literally 52, didn't have a cent to my name, and thought, well, how am I going to provide for my family? So now, our own personal plan was to get 5 properties, which we've just, buying a 5th home in Banksia Grove in our personal name. Well, one's a self-managed super fund. One's, I bought a small little office over in East Perth, which is like my man cave, anyway. But that's it for me. Now it's about clearing that debt because I'm retiring in 3 years' time. But the reality is, I think if anyone can learn from what I've been through, it's just don't give up.
Yeah.
And one thing I like about being older is you don't. Sometimes you trust your gut when you're young, but your gut, it's more instinctive. It's not actual. As you get a little bit older and your gut says, don't do this, your gut's right.
Yeah.
And I've always believed, just do a good job. Don't worry about money. If you do a good job, the money will follow. And just be better. I mean, we're not trying to say we're the best. We probably are when you look statistically, but better is about always striving to find another. Well, we only had a big planning meeting this week with our marketing team about LVI, which is Levita Invest, which is by Levita. It's Levita Homes. It's just that we have this little division. We're not trying to separate ourselves, but it's more just about how we can better what we do with our relationships with our partners, what we can do better for clients. Where's the market going? Like, it's hard to believe, what was it, 4 years ago, if you had $1,000 for the land and $1,000 for the build and a crack habit, you could buy a house.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Yeah. Or you had a bad credit history, you could buy a house. There are the ways you can manipulate and work around it. Now it's 700.
Yeah.
And interesting things I'm observing is like the first home buyer. Everyone talks about owner-occupiers, first home buyers. They're not as much as the market as they were. When you're spending $750,000 on a house, you've got other people involved. You've got a $50,000 deposit minimum. The sort of person that's got a $50,000 deposit is older. They're often, how do I articulate this the right way? Maybe have a better head on their shoulders because they've got that saved.
Yeah.
Or mum and dad are helping out, or they're putting up some equity in their house. So, of course, it's not just in the retail side of the business. There's a little bit more customisation needed. Yeah. And even what I think a lot of people don't realise is a lot of first home buyers now, I believe it's more than 30% of the market in investment stock are first home buyers, or I think they put a title on it, rent investors. Now, the industry loves a title. But they're staying home at mum and dad's. They're milking the fridge, milking the Netflix account, not paying any rent, but they're getting on the ladder. And so it might be an investment home they're choosing to buy in WA. And the reason why they're buying in WA, we've got the best yields in the country. You spend $700,000 in Perth, you're going to get $750 a week rent. You go to Adelaide, same house, same price, you're going to get $650.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Melbourne, same house, same price, you're going to get $550. So you've got a yield of 3.5% versus a yield up to 5.5% in WA. So if you've got your $50,000 deposit for over here, which is only really 10%, but if you've got 20% somehow saved up, or that your parents are providing you with equity in their home, you're nearly positively geared.
Yeah.
That's what some people don't realise, that's why they're here. Because if they want to buy in Sydney where they live, it's $1.2 million.
That's right.
It's a shithole. And hey, it rents for $1,000 a week or $1,200 a week, but on $1.2 million, that's a miserable return.
Yep.
Yeah? So I think, and we've had all the drivers in the economy. We've had employment, obviously, is strong. We've got we're not all about mining now. And things with AUKUS and these things, and even this week, the $10 billion project with the Japanese building, that's another big change for Henderson and employment here. But also we've got that organic growth. I remember coming here with Eagle Boys in 94 and there was 535,000 people in Perth. There's now over 2 million in Perth. The freeway used to stop at what was Ocean Reef Road and had just extended to Safety Bay Road. Now it stops at Dunsborough. It's like, it's changed. And we were a big country town and we're now a small city, which takes some adjusting. It used to be 15 minutes to get anywhere in Perth, which was always a fib to yourself because it always took 30. But now it's like, shit, it's an hour to get to work. We got Metronet. Wow, like a government that had the foresight to do that. Now, I feel sorry for those that bought a place in Ellenbrook in 1999 because the Metronet was coming next year. It took 26 years to turn up.
Yeah.
But now it's a 40-minute trip. I think is it correct? I think 90% of Perth's population is within 15 minutes drive of the train network.
Yeah.
It's opened up Wellard to the South Mandurah, obviously, and all the way now up to Yanchep. That's again because I've spent a lot of time in the development of Adelaide. And you go to Adelaide, they're fixing everything. Over here, we're building everything, and I think that's what makes this little market a little bit unique. But I've dominated that whole conversation, right? I do apologise.
No, mate.
That's the journey from how I got here.
Yeah, cool. No, I mean, one of the interesting things that you've said here, Chris, and I think this is really worth talking about. Like never giving up.
No.
Right? I mean, the fact of being 52, driving Ubers, most people, and this is my own experience, right? Most people are willing to play the game so safely so that they never end up like that.
Yeah.
And yet you've been willing to see some really high highs and obviously some low lows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even today with some of the stuff you spoke about with the farm and, like, these are numbers that most people would only dream of. These are lotto dreams for people.
Yeah.
But they're not even willing to pursue it at the risk of feeling like they are failing if they are driving an Uber or they are stuck. You know what I mean? So that's, I think one thing to your credit, never giving up and not just knowing it, but living that way.
Yep.
Seems like a really positive thing for your success.
Yeah, thank you. And it's like, and those dark places, it's like those, sometimes you start to believe the voices in your head.
Yeah.
And it nearly got me in 2020, or 2019 when I was driving Uber, because you're 52 years of age, your dad's helping you out with the rent, which takes all your pride away as a man.
Yeah.
Daughters looks at you with stars in her eyes, but you're thinking you're only in school because of the generosity of others. And I didn't know where I wanted to go. But sometimes you believe a little bit in karma and good things happen to good people. And it was the support of Katrina, my wife, as well, because we basically made the decision we're never going to business again. 3 times we've done this, 3 times we've had great highs, and then they ended up with great lows. So that's why this time it's been very different. It's about, and Andrew's one of the nicest people I've ever known, who's my partner. I'm a minor shareholder. I've learned it's better to have a small share of a racehorse than a majority share of a donkey.
Yep.
I've had the donkeys, so I know the place, And I work with a great team. Like, the culture that we have at Levita is incredible. And, from my direct team who I work with, I know you do with Alexius and Nat, nearly daily here. But we've got Brooke, we've got Jess, we've got Angie and in the LVI team. But then it's the whole Levita team. Mark to see in me the fact that this kid, or this bloke, because I'm not a kid, but he's got history. And if I help shape him, and he has, we've butted heads a few times. It's his train set, not mine. And that's been the hardest thing for me to learn, because I've always used to call in the shots. They've always been my marketing department or my operations department. But I've learned, and you've got to, if I have to, I understand that it's someone else's business, and if you have to dance, you have to dance. Now, Mark's never actually asked me to dance, but I will if he says.
Yeah.
And that's the terminology I use. And on 4th of May, 2028, when I turn 60, I won't dance anymore, because that's when I finish.
Yeah.
I've agreed with Mark that I'm going to work to them, but I find it very flattering. He's asked me to remain on the board after then, and I will, because I feel this is it's like a family to me. But I have always believed in empowerment, and that's one of the things I learned from franchising. Is the fact that together everyone achieves more. I know it's an analogy for team, but the successful franchise organisations are not the ones that stand there beating their hand on the table going, you must do it this way. If your franchisees don't like you, your business doesn't work. Eagle Boys here was a fantastic business. It was a great brand. It's still a household word in this state. The company that came in and bought it, the Pizza Hut deal for it, they did a management buy it. It all fell apart. It was sad for me to hear of people that were my friends, and I was probably too friendly. We had a real, it was more like a family. But there was pain there that shouldn't have been there. And that was when MBAs and accountants started making decisions based on what the balance sheet said, And I think that's where the similarity is in the building industry to fast food. And people go, well, what similarity? It's a street fight. Mm-hmm. It's a very competitive industry. It's full of rogues. There's a lot of lies out there. But you can shine if you be honest. And I think that's one of the things that the industry lacked, that someone would walk into my display, I wouldn't be trying to trap them there. And, the tricks of stand at this end when they come in so they can't get out the door. There's all these, I don't believe in any of that crap. I'd just say, hi, how you going? And then I'd always ask them, what did they not like? I remember being ridiculed for that. Why would you ask something? Why would you start with a negative? I said, well, it lets me find out what they don't like. And then I may agree with that dislike, or I might challenge it. But what they're saying is you're being honest. Most people are going, how much have you got to spend? They're in there because they want to buy a house.
Yeah.
Who goes around display homes on a weekend? I'm glad we don't do display homes. We never will. One of the great things I love about Levita. But if someone's ringing me and talking about investment homes, or my own self-generation, I do for friends and those people that do want to build homes directly with Levita, it's like they're ringing because that decision's made. It's just building the trust. I went to the UDIA breakfast this morning, and terminology I hadn't heard before is trust arrives on a tortoise, but it leaves on a racehorse. And I did learn a long time ago, give everyone the trust until they take it away from you. And sadly, in 2019, I didn't trust people anymore and was in a position I was never going to do it again. But I'm glad I bit the bullet, and I reached out to Andrew, and when I got involved with BGC, and he believed in me because he knew my character as a person, and that's something that doesn't change. And well, look where we are now. But it was definitely don't give up. Don't. It doesn't matter how much you get hit. It hurts though. Like, I remember the times pulled up on the side of the road with my head in my hands and tears going, and then your bloody Uber thing starts beeping. You got to snap yourself out of it, wipe your face, and have a drink of water. And hi, how are you today? Where are we off to? It's like, and it's just what sales is fun. I don't like the terminology of being a salesman, but I'm a storyteller. Yeah. And if you can just find out what are the buttons that this person, someone wants to buy, well, what do you want to buy? But also having that ability, if they can't afford it, let them know.
Yeah.
It was like, the age of entitlement where you get people that come in that didn't have a job. And we're telling them they needed an area to store the jet ski and they wanted the freestanding bath and the spa, a room for a pool. It's like, well, have you got $1,000 of deposit? Oh, I can save that up over the next 3 months. It's like, we've got to get your expectations aligned with reality. And I think now that the market's certainly knocked out not the poverty buyer, that's the wrong terminology, but those that don't have any money, is gone. It's a different buyer now. But also there's a different expectation. But the rental, how long's it going to last? Yeah. Our population's growing at a rate that we can't. That was what the whole conversation this morning with Minister Carey was about, is the fact that we cannot build the homes we need, and nor are we going to. How many people are aspiring to be a bricklayer?
Yeah.
I mean, the toughest work, I went and did a bricklaying experience with one of my clients. I think after about 15 minutes I was done. I don't know how these guys build houses, And we rely on trades to do what we do.
Very much.
And so the trade base that we've got is the trade base we've got. With migration, we can grow it, but there's, influencers and looking in your telephone and making $500,000 a year promoting a T-shirt at Kmart isn't going to get houses built.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that the government's doing. $10,000, I think, if you come from New Zealand, the apprentice programs, which is all good, and they're all combined to a solution. But the reality is this, people that you probably experience it here, where people go, I'm just going to wait for the prices to come down. How long do we wait till we can get that $119,000 house and land package in Ellenbrook from 2000? When's it going to come back to that? It's not. Okay. I think we found a little bit of an equilibrium on price on land because it did grow phenomenally over a period of time. About November last year, and actually, I believe the market really slowed down. A lot of people didn't see it because the builders are so busy on untitled land. We're experiencing that in South Australia because nothing's titled. The joke in South Australia is they tell us what month they're going to title, but not what year.
Yeah.
Over here, this delay of 3 or 6, or it's now becoming 9 months, and it's sometimes 12, is unfamiliar. And so a lot of builders were flat out busy, but didn't notice at the front end of their business that, shit, there's not as much coming in. And I think in November till about March, April, the market in Perth went, $700,000 for a house now. What happened? How'd that happen? And I think that's where Adelaide is now, because it backed off a little bit in Adelaide about Feb, so they powered through Christmas. And Adelaide's coming to the same realism and starting to come out of it now, except they have no land. And so I think the acceptance is there now, and it's about getting on the ladder. And whether you own the home that you live in or whether you're investing to buy a home, it's get one. Get the bricks and mortar, be it new home with a builder like us. I bought a 1-bedroom apartment in the city in December last year because it's directly across from the new uni. It was $430,000, 1-bedder without a car park. Every rule in the book says don't buy a 1-bedder without a car park. The rental appraisal that the seller, who was a real estate agent, said it was $500 a week rent, maybe $525. I didn't even go to the viewing because I wasn't in town, but Katrina went. And other people were snooping, when there's an open house. It's the old original first radio station in WA, the original West Farmers building. And the other tenants were all paying $650, $675 rent. And I thought, Katrina, do you think they're just setting this up? Clever salesperson trying, there's the trickery in this industry. She says, no, I don't think so. Mainly migrants, like, Chinese who are living in the building. So we offered the asking price at $430. Went to Rent West, which is the company that we do a fair bit with because Mark has an involvement in it. It's rented at $700 a week. I'm like, huh? And then they want to next year, because next year the uni opens, and I've gone, no, go have a 1 year lease. But it was just interesting that we bought that in our own personal name because we wanted to net this negative gear. Bloody thing's cash flow positive.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's amazing. And it's like, that's a one better. It's like, you can still buy one betters in Perth for 400 grand.
Mm.
You can't, no building being built in Perth has a one better for less than 600,000 now. So the replacement value is $200,000 above that.
Yeah.
But there's a certain risk with apartments. You've got outgoings and all that sort of stuff. And you don't get the equity growth in an apartment. Like your apartments are coming back into the scene now because apartments were only 400 grand each. Now they're 600 for a one better, 800, 850 for a two better, and 950 to 1.1 for a three better. All of a sudden it's viable to build apartments, but they've had to wait, 7 or 8 years to get back to that space. Nothing like your own dirt.
Yeah.
Nothing like green title. No one can take it off you. You know? And whilst I live in an apartment in East Perth myself, we've got a little investment in the city, I still think that, having your own dirt in the investment space is where and there's good opportunities out there. People get, one of the hardest things I find is the emotion that people sometimes attach to what's in. I get your own home, but when it's investment home, is the address that important? The suburbs important. There's got to do some due diligence on suburbs, but does it matter that it's going to be coloured this? Does it matter if it's got this particular laminate in it? Don't get too emotionally connected. Or one of the hardest things I believe, and you deal with a lot of local buyers, I know, is my uncle's brother said that the guy down the street there bought his house. Those things take away from the decision-making process. How much is the house? What's it going to rent for? And what's the strategy? Am I trying to flip it? Is it a long hold? I remember I don't know who said it, but it's like, you should never sell property. Just hang on to it. I remember when I was really little, 4 or 6 years of age, we lived in Croydon in Melbourne. Dad was a bank manager. And I remembered the address, went in and Googled it, and that house now is 1.6 million. It's ready to be bowled over. It hasn't had a cent spent on it since we moved out of it 45 years ago. But he sold it for 41,000. So if he could have been in a position, and back then, your mortgage was 1.5 years of your income. Now it's 7? Is that right? I think is an average. So he just hung on to that.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing. Whereas if people are smart, their first home, I think we're going to see more and more of it, will be an investment. And they'll milk mum and dad. I know my daughter, she's 22. She's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But Dad, I want this house out in Banksia Grove. I think we can do this. I said, well, you need a full-time job. She's still at uni. She's only, part-time up the road. But I think, where the market is in Perth, nothing's forever. This will slow down and it will stop. But I don't think we're going to fall off the cliff. Perth's always been a boom or bust. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that's the case now. I think it will flatline for a period of time. And then, Adelaide's always shown 5 years of flatlining and 2 years of growth, 5 years later. I think here we're just going to sit here, we'll have our little bursts. And mining's just an embedded part of our economy now, but it's not all of it. Whereas you go back to 2011, that last boom, it was all driven by mining. It's not, now, if we wake up tomorrow and iron ore is $50 a tonne, WA's in trouble. But the consumption of iron ore is not just the Chinese now. It's like there's different things happening around the world, and we can't control that. We could sit here and debate Trumpisms for the next days. It's hilarious. I just believe the Yanks get what they deserve. But the reality is, I think we're in a global recession, but we just don't talk about it. Right? And, WA is obviously pumping up the whole country. Every time I'm over east in Victoria or in South Australia, I like to remind everyone, our royalties are here to build your roads. Which always gets the usual bite back. But I think we're in a pretty healthy market. And as long as you're conservative and smart and listen to, I think getting advice, that's one of the things that, I was 50 years of age and didn't have a home. Didn't have any assets because I didn't have any super, which was interesting because I always thought that I'm going to crack the big time one day, so I don't need super. And suddenly you find out you're 50, 55, you've got no super, and you're talking to your mates, oh yeah, I've got 800, I've got 1.1, you're thinking, shit, I had 34,000, my wife had 60.
Yeah.
Now we rolled that into a self-managed super fund last year, topped it up because you can, and bought out, we got the keys to our first SMS investment property out in Rosehill Waters last Friday.
Nice.
So at least we're late, but I'm going to work pretty hard the next 3 years to catch up.
Yeah.
But, you don't think of you should start with the end in mind. Any business plan, you should always start with the end in mind. And I think even with our own life, back to Wodonga to see my father, who's had a stroke 4 months ago and hospitalised and in care now and will never go home. And it's heartbreaking to see he spent his whole life. And now we're working out, well, how do we pay for this? How does it work? And they're in okay shape, but the reality is you don't think about it. And Dad's 83, 85, and Mum's in the late 70s. But we've got it all sorted out. It'll be okay. But then they didn't plan for that to happen. And I think the same thing with me now. Once you pass that 50, and the descent, as they pull out a cycling analogy, the descent is a lot easier than the climb.
Yeah.
It's a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And you do notice that's the value I put on time. And back to the Levita model, the people that I work with are great because they understand speed. That's what I think where we're different to most is our culture is about quick. Not with compromise. You don't want to compromise quality for speed, but it's more about we get what we call an expression of interest come in on a Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Lexi puts it in. We don't wait till Monday morning and put 5 in like some builders do because you can't interrupt me on a weekend. So our phone rings at 7 o'clock on a Saturday night because Raf needs to ask Lexi something about a block of land. If we can, we'll answer it. Yeah? You can't expect to enjoy the benefits of what we do, which is primarily income, and be 9 to 5 on the clock. It doesn't work. It takes a toll, as you know, and I know, and sometimes you're scratching around finding where am I going to get that time for myself, but I'm not counting, but 2 years, 7 months, 8 days and 12 and a half hours, and I'll be sorted. But no, it's I think if getting up and getting knocked down hurts, and that psychologically, I think mental health is the buzzword that we hear all the time now, and I absolutely believe in it because I know the spaces I ended up with myself. But it's just a title; it's not new. Yeah, it's always been there, a bit like postnatal depression. I remember a few years ago, or actually, you go back to the 80s and 90s when we first started using computers. It was RSI. Yeah, I mean, it's going to get us all. We're not going to be able to use our hands when we turn 40 or 50. Well, 57, they still work, Yeah. And we had postnatal, was it PTSD, Gulf War, but they were always there. Well, maybe the RSI, maybe not, because typing was a relatively new thing. Mental health has always been there, but it's about making sure that those words that you hear in your head, just making sure they're real. Because sometimes they do dominate too much, and that's it's sad what happens out there. Yeah, but I've never heard the word, psychiatrist or support or medication as much as I have now. Yeah, which scares me because it's like I've always believed even if you need a Panadol, you got to be really hurting, and that was normally because I had too many beers. I haven't drunk for 14 years now, so if I wake up and I feel crook now, it's because I'm crook. It's not because of that 14th Guinness I had at 3 o'clock this morning in the 2 Jägermeisters, which I think I drank. I gave up drinking at 45, but I drank as much up to 45 than most people did to 8 anyway. So I was very much the social drinker. Yeah. But and I had to give up smoking. That's why I gave up drinking. Oh, good. Because I said, well, if I give up, because I remember the doctor said, well, how are you going to give up? Because I said, I'll give up drinking, no problem. So how are you going to do? I'll give up smoking. So how are you going to do that? So I'll give up drinking. I'll never drink again. It was in Fremantle Hospital here in 2013 when I had, a whole stomach removed because of Crohn's disease. Right. And they said, we've told you for 20 years you shouldn't smoke. I said, no, I won't smoke again. Yeah. And that's why I haven't had a bevy since. My vice is Red Bull. Yeah. You've got to go out and socialise, and I'll drink every... And the funny thing is how many people stand there and going, that Red Bull's so bad for you as they knock down another shot. Yeah. Once a month I might go have 4 Red Bulls. I'm not going to kill myself doing that. Yeah. But then I can still drive.
Yeah, that's it.
You're bouncing off the walls.
You start catch an Uber. Because you mentioned Levita and the team, and obviously one of the things I have noticed is, excuse me, is I mean the way things are run there, it does seem very unique from the outside looking at, in a good way, in a really good way, and we're obviously trying to, I'm not going to say replicate because we're not replicating anything, but we have a really big focus on culture.
Yep.
So other than speed, you mentioned speed, but what are the things that you guys are sort of doing or sort of seeing that's helping build that sort of culture within the team?
Good question, because when I first walked in, we've got an open office. Yep. Now, I'm old school. Maybe not the office in the corner with the river views, but having an office. We don't have an office. Mark and I in our office when I joined, we had a lunch table that we'd share on because there were no desks for us, you know. And then we grew out of that and moved into the office where we are now, and we've just grown out of that. So we've now got upstairs. A few things they do, like Mark's Sicilian. He's actually in Sicily now for his 3 months this year. The first time he's been able to go for 3 months without having to break it and come back. And then, you know, after COVID 2 years ago, his first trip. His daughter Joy is getting married, you know what I mean, next week. And so therefore, the whole family and friends are going over there. But the first weekend I started, he goes, "Oh, come down." He's got a storage shed down near Willagee somewhere. Says, "We're making sausages." What the hell? Go down there, and there's Stewie and the drafting man, about 10 of the team. There's only about 14 on the team then. And they're all making sausages. It's like they've got this giant condom, and then, okay, but got to meet the team. That's cool. Then we have sausage making day. Tomato bottling day. So we go, and now that even though that we're 60 of us in the office, Mark still comes in and, you know, some of us are cleaning the bottles, some are out there boiling up the sauce, and we bottle all those, and we now put Levita labels on them. We all get our allocations. Then we do the olive bottling, and then Stewie drives where we make our own, you know, the dry out the meat, you know, and that sort of stuff that we do is done sincerely. We're not doing it because it's a task. It's because Mark just loves to do that, and everyone gets involved. And we still tapping on the LVI team, and normally over tapping on the keys, trying to dodge having to do anything, but we help with the consumption very much.
Yeah.
And then even just before Mark went over to Sicily for this year's trip, flew down to Adelaide, did a cook-up. I mean, all the different pastas and, you know, the kachiri boards and all that sort of stuff. Then came to Perth and repeated the same thing. Now, it's a lot harder to do it for 60 people in office. Then all the supers come in than it used to be when there was half a dozen of us. But that sort of commitment's great. Yeah, I work from home. We don't have a structured policy, but we have, you know, 60% of our workforce are female in the office. A lot of them are young mums or husbands are on FIFO, so we accommodate that. Dogs in the office. Now, that I took some getting used to that, because I think, for me, I'm not a dog person, where Mark and most of the team just love dogs. I think dogs are like kids. When they're mine, love them. Someone else's, they're all yours.
Yeah.
But you walk into work and, you know, we have the little fence across the front, which means we have a dog roster. And the fact that you're allowed to bring that to work. We don't have a uniform. Like, we have merch that we call it, which has got the logo on it, and some have the T-shirts, some have the jumpers, some have I wear the construction shirt normally, so we're outside. But people come to work in a tracksuit. I think that's enlightening in this now. Where, you know, I remember, you know, where we used to be BGC, it was like the shirt with the logo, the tie. We didn't have to wear a tie, but collared up pants. You know, how many times have you seen the rep with the pants, no socks, the fancy boots, the Louis Vuitton belt buckle, the Prada sunglasses, and the C63 AMG parked out the front? Yeah. And then it's the last week of the month. Oh, please put the deal through. I've got to get my car payment through. You know, we don't have any of that. I mean, we don't even really have a sales team. We have internal reps, and we have external partners like yourself on the investment side. Even the retail side, we use external brokers. It's like it's very reliant on each other. The open office, when I first was in there, I struggled with it. Like, I can't hear myself think. But I remember Mark and I were sitting there one day. I can't remember what it was, but I think it was estimating and drafting. We're having a little bit of a conversation. And in the old office, you could see the BGC building in the distance. And Mark said to me, he said, "James, you just watch this." In about 15 minutes, they sorted out what they were discussing. He says, if that was BGC, drafting, we're on the 3rd floor, okay? Estimating, we're up there on the 5th. It would have been 4 days of no one answering, and then he would have got an email, then he would have got the shits and gone up the lift, you know, to try and say. He said, we did it in 15 minutes. He said, that's a part of the culture of building quickly. And it's a really unique place to work. And we went to Adelaide. You can't transfer culture. People think you can, and even we thought you can, and it's developed its own. Our culture there is a little bit different because we started with mainly investment homes, but still a great culture. The food and all those sort of values are still there, but it has to be sincere. But also a culture evolves. I mean, there's 60 of us in the office now, not 8.
Yeah.
So, you know, I come back from Adelaide, and, you know, I'm in Adelaide every month for a couple of weeks. I come back and it's like, well, who's that? Is someone new? I remember the email that went out welcoming to the team and said, "Oh, great to have you on board." But that's changing a bit, but we have we get the social committee, and every 2 or 3 months there's another social event, and I think that's what is how we protect it. I mean, and, you know, if you ask what's the most valuable thing in our organisation, I do believe it's our culture, but where do you put it on a balance sheet?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, and look, this is one of the hard lessons of this year. Really, people is the biggest part of any business.
Yep.
And maintaining a culture, because everyone's got a culture. It's just could be good or bad.
Yeah.
And it's trying to maintain something positive is extraordinarily difficult. Everyone's got different ideas, but one of the challenges, man.
Yeah. I come from fast food, and so back in the day, I can say that now I'm 57, but the first, I guess a pizza store, a good store, strong store, would have 25 to 30 people working in it, and we didn't have computers. So if we had 5 phones, you'd have 5 teenagers on the phone from 4:45 to about 7:45. That window of about 3 hours when you do 80% of your day's revenue, and they'd be just, thanks for calling in, good boys, Grant speaking. How may I help? Boom, 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 boom. And taking 14 to 9 months is the law, but half the time they were younger. It didn't matter then. There wasn't the policing of those sorts of things. And that responsibility we used to take really seriously, because you're developing these people and teaching them how, when someone just walked in the door, just nod. You don't have to say anything, just nod and acknowledge it there. It buys you a minute. Teaching that is something that you can't write in a manual. Yeah, that used to be great. Now I sit there with, friends, and they turn around, my Indiana, my daughter is an Indiana Jones. That is true. So,
that's why you named it.
Love it. Not because of the movie, but because we love the name Indiana, but she's copped a bit of a hard time for that.
Oh, wait, of course, Jones.
Yeah,
of course. So
when the phone starts playing, at the end, it's Indy. But, it's like she worked with me and my businesses from when she was about 11 years of age. But I've got friends that say, my kids aren't. No, they're focused on their education. But then they, socially don't know how to communicate.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's a bit like a gap year. It should be compulsory.
Yeah.
I mean, that someone should go out and spend a year in the real world before they go to uni, particularly if they're going to be a teacher. It's not right. The teacher does primary school, high school, university, goes back to school. It's just not right. And,
I agree.
And I think, that same thing is working for a few years. One thing makes me so proud of my daughter, she's got that work ethic. She works at Gucci and she works at Specsavers, and when she's not doing that, she's studying, doing her marketing and art degree at uni.
Cool.
That work ethic, and she saves 50% of everything she earns. She's got the bank of dad. She's very clever at milking me, but that's one thing my father never taught me.
Right.
Was save, save, save. And the other bit of advice Dad gave me was, a house won't buy you a business, son, but a business will buy you many houses. In this business, that's true, but I think I should have bought a couple of houses on the journey.
Yeah.
But Dad's very unwell at the moment. I'm not sure how long he'll be with us, but we all, Dad was in banking for many years, and then he left the bank and got involved in a transportable home company, a bit like Modular Homes now.
Cool.
Minor shareholder with a large partner that actually ran up, bought company planes and private properties. All of a sudden the business went broke. And I remember Dad was late 30s, early 40s with a teenage son and with 2 sisters. But he refused to go bankrupt, paid every single cent back, did deeds of arrangement with creditors, and then got into land, was in land for the last 30 years of his working career. And when I got into trouble with the purchase shops, and Dad said, son, just declare bankrupt. You'll be back in 5 years, go back to Coles. I said, I saw him do the same thing. I said, no, when you borrow money, you pay it back. It's as simple as that. And went through the same pain and the same tears when I got into trouble with the pizza group with a long time ago. But you do the right thing, and the way the land worked out for me, and the meeting Tom from Eagle Boys and converting and changing over, that whole experience was amazing. And I think, there's nothing wrong with making mistakes. That's one of the things I used to find incredible about America. Like, I consider myself an intrapreneur as opposed to an entrepreneur, whereas I work well within the confines of a system. That's one of the things I've come into Levitico. Well, we need a system for them. I remember at first I think, this guy keeps going on about systems. But I said, but when we're doing 20 houses a month, as if they're going to be doing 20 houses a month, 3 months later we were, that persistence made sense. But in America, when someone falls over, they put their arm around you and say, get up, son, you'll be all right. In Australia, it's like, I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. Americans can be proud, and even the way that you can restructure yourself and get back so much different to here, And I do believe you pay your debts. If you borrow money, you pay it back. It's as simple as that. But I do think that we still have this, I knew it was going to happen.
Tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah, that's the exact vocabulary. And that's a shame, because I think if you didn't have people that had a crack would still be horse and cart. Right?
Well, this is the thing that I think strikes me the most about your story, Grant, is the fact that, like I said before, man, most people just they're playing so safe to avoid the pain of feeling like they're a failure or whatever it is, you know. Whereas, like, I mean, you've backed yourself multiple times, you know. I mean, and particularly, you know, obviously when you're talking about, you know, going from, you know, groceries to then in the food industry, going from that, you know, to Europe, going from that to something, and it's like majority of people that I've met, they're not even willing to change industries because of fear, let alone change country, like start business. You know, people aren't willing to do that sort of shit, man. So I think that's actually really inspiring.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate that. You sometimes when you look back, you know, and you sometimes go, oh, what would you change? A couple of people on the way I might not have given the trust to that I did, but I needed those tears to get where I am.
100%.
And I think if you don't manage the change will manage you.
Yep.
And that's something that took me a while to understand the true definition of that. Nothing stays constant. Nothing's the same. You know? And if you can sit there and look ahead, I love daydreaming. I really do. Yeah. And
must be a Jones thing.
It's the house that you want to have, or the boat you want to have, or the car you want to drive. And it's not necessarily all materialistic, particularly when you get older. It's the time that you want to have, and that you do find that your circle shrinks.
Yeah.
And I remember many years ago when the Eagle Boys brand was successful, I was one of the founders of Young Entrepreneurs Organisation over here, and I got to meet all these other guys. And you suddenly realise that there's people out there that are much more successful than me. The measuring tool's always wealth, much wealthier than me. This is really cool because I started to see that everything wasn't just Eagle Boys. Like with those supermarkets, it was just supermarkets.
Yeah.
And that's now I've got a very open mind. So, you know, someone said to me a long time ago, one of the guys I was in YEO with, he said, Josie, you should sell houses. When I was selling Eagle Boys and I wasn't sure what I was going to do before I'd offered the GM role in Europe. He says, because you would kill it. And he was right.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's interesting, but I think that the industry that we're in is in such a unique window, okay? And are very fortunate. Maybe the stars have lined up for a reason. I still walk around looking over my shoulder all the time, going, who's going to take this away from me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the pain and from the tears.
Trauma, yeah.
And yeah, that's the word, trauma. But I've also set myself up that it doesn't matter now. And I'm not the healthiest. I've got Crohn's disease. I had a stroke 2.5 years ago after the vaccine for the virus. So
you're just kidding, really?
Yeah, actually did. I'm in a neurology division with, you know, the Parent Institute, trying to sort out a few of the challenges that come with health. And that's one of the things you realise when you and there is a direct correlation between AstraZeneca and stroke and neurological disorder. So that, you know, knocked me around a bit. But it was my last time I had a stroke, which was in the early 2000s when I was in Monaco, was because I was 180 kilos.
Wow, yeah.
And it was lifestyle driven. This was purely, I don't drink, don't smoke. Not really that stressful environment. You know, I was working for BGC, but I literally, just got up one morning and the face had dropped in the right hand. And my leg now, to this day, only works about 90% capacity. But they're the things that teach you that what's really important now. I don't care about the cars anymore. I don't care about the boats. I don't care about all that stuff. It's more about that time with my daughter and the smaller circle.
Yeah.
I mean, when you live in Monaco, you had a lot of friends.
Yeah, I bet.
And, you know, you're in that public environment, you're raising shares, you're getting capital, you can do this, you do that. But that all goes, those people disappear.
Yep.
Well, hang, where are you? You know? That hurt, that took some adjusting.
Yeah.
But it also just meant there's less Christmas cards you've got to send.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we don't send Christmas cards anymore anyway, do we? But it's like, the people I surround myself with are the sort of people that you genuinely want to be around.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things as you get a bit older,
yeah,
you learn to understand. And, you know, it is a good industry. I'm very fortunate that I fell into the opportunity that I have now.
Yep.
And that's not without reason, be it cool, karma, be it whatever. Very lucky that Mark could look me in the eyes and go, I think this guy needs a little bit of help and a bit of guidance, and he's given me that. Mark Reed, a lot of people don't realise that the other half of Feeder Homes is Mark Reed, the ex-CEO of Bank West. So we're also very well structured for a building company our size, and I'm privy to know what it's like on the board. That's something as a participating board member with the rest of my peers on the board we can be very proud of, because what we achieved 4 years in, there's builders here that we'll probably never achieve.
Yeah. Excellent.
But we can't do it without partners like yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I know your model. I see it online. I know what you do. I've seen your podcasts. And for us, it's not volume.
Yep.
We only, and you know, it sounds like a marketing saying, but it's not. It's a genuine part of our culture. We say no more than we say yes. One of the things that Mark really knows is I'll always protect the company's interests, not my own personally. But it's we only sell what we know we can build.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID was a classic example. BGC didn't know how many they'd sold. They couldn't even add it up.
Yep.
And when they did, it was wrong. You know?
Yep.
We know what we can sell, and we can wind the tap up and turn it down on the basis of what we're. And that's good because, you know, I still hear the conversations about, oh, yeah, I've done this month. I'm going to do this next month. Can you build them?
Mm-hmm.
Because, and particularly in the investment space, I mean, I'm very protective of, well, are we getting looked after? We're not prioritising retail over invest, are you? Like, you know, investor partners do 3 or 4 a month. A retail partner only comes once. But they're two different dynamics. I've had to learn a lot about understanding the retail side, and I know how important it is to our brand. But also I know how good the investment side is for speed.
Yeah.
And the quicker, I just don't know why builders get greedy and take on too many builds. Then they take longer to get paid. And when you take longer to build, you expose yourself to market fluctuations.
Yep.
If we know it's going to take us about 7-8 months to, from when we pour the slab to when we're pretty much at, you know, close to have PCI, maybe 8 months. Our risk is that 8-month window.
Yep.
And we don't have a price list, it's live. You know, you contact us today for a house that you want in Baldivis, you ring us next Tuesday, it could be a different price.
Yep.
But we're adjusting to our, you know, our technology is so good we can adjust with immediacy. Some builders still, every 6 months they chuck out another price. Oh shit, we've got to fix this. It's
nightmare. Well, I've got one more question for you, mate.
Yeah.
Sorry, Grant. Before we finish up, because I know you got to get out of here pretty soon. What is the number one tip you have for people for today in 2025?
The number one tip?
Number one tip. If you had one tip you could give to people to help improve their lives, what would it be?
You have 2 ears and 1 mouth because you're supposed to listen twice as much as you're meant to speak.
Hell yeah, man. That's a good one.
It's listen. Because the answers are normally around you. You got to learn to filter out the bullshit. But I think too many people try and do it all on their own, as was I, you know. Ego is a dangerous thing. I mean, it's like when you think you're the king of the hill, you're not. I mean, and if you are, someone's just trying to knock you off it. I mean, so use the people around you, not use as in you. Seek counsel from those around you. I've never been, and one of the great things living in Monaco taught me that not to be intimidated by wealth, or actually to define what wealth was. You know, someone had said to me once, "Rich is Kobe Bryant, wealthy is the guy that pays him."
Yeah,
I mean, I got to meet some incredible people in that town that, you know, don't even know how to add up their wealth. They weren't driving Rolls Royces and turning up in 3-piece suits. They'd be sitting there having a dart, reading the paper. You get at Hotel Paris, you used to be able to get the newspaper, a coffee, and an orange juice and a croissant for $5. Now the English version newspapers were €5.50. Right? So you'd sit there and you'd be sitting next to, you know, people that you just wouldn't believe. And if you actually just got to talk to them, everyone's got a story.
Mm-hmm.
And you just ask them. I mean, when I'd only been there for about 6 months, and I'm sitting I was a smoker, I'm having a dart, reading the newspaper, and the guy pulls up, "Can I borrow your lighter?" We're having a little bit of a chat, and he goes, because when Monaco, if you said you live here, that's enough. And I said, "Oh yeah, I live here, resident, just moved here." "Great." Well, and he asked me, "What do I do?" I said, I'm the general manager of a transport company expanding to Europe, but fundamentally at heart I'm a retailer, food, and I've gone into my whole journey, you know, which is before that was the start of the Monaco years, and what we've been through tonight. And he was enthralled, asking me all these great questions. Then after about 3 cigarettes each and about 3 coffees, I said, "Listen, I've been really rude. Who are you?" And this is a guy called Philip Green, Sir Philip Green, who's was the chairman of the company that had just made a bid for Marks and Spencer for £7 billion.
Right.
And had just paid the biggest family dividend in the history of UK corporate of 1.9 billion. And so owns Miss Shop, all these huge brands. And here I am telling him I'm the retailer.
Yeah.
But It was great. And for the next 9 years that I was in Monaco for 10 years, I'd be walking on the Portier at $180 million boat. Jonesy, come here. And go over and sit down. They didn't care. I mean, and I could ask him a question about, I remember when we were starting Golden Dynasty Resources and we were looking at other things, I'd just ask him, what's the retail market like? What's this? They just want to share their stories. There's a lot of help out there if you ask for it.
Yeah.
Don't do it on your own.
That's great advice, man.
Because you can't.
That's really great advice. Love it, man. But look, great. Thanks for coming in, man. I really, really do appreciate it. Always valuable. And look, ironically, you're here for that reason. You know, trying to suck out as much wisdom as we possibly can, man. So thanks for taking the time.
Appreciated the opportunity to be here. Appreciate everything to do with you and the team. It is a great team, and it starts at the top. And,
man, hopefully.
We'll continue to work together as we do. And I'll let you do some editing through what I've said in the last couple of hours.
Of course.
But I appreciate it, mate, and everything that we do with you guys.
Yeah, same goes, man. And I really appreciate you coming in.